Hi guys, so my name is DiCerbo, and today we're going to be giving you guys a speech on heroin addiction and how it is on the rise. So to start off today, do any of you guys, yourself, or know any family members or anything that is affected by the heroin? Okay, so I see some of you guys have had a past history with it, so this will be good because you guys can relate to some of the speech topics today. Okay, so we're going to start out with what is heroin. It's basically a narcotic drug, and that is extremely addictive. We're going to talk about how addiction is essentially a brain disease, and also heroin is on the rise among the white, young, suburban population. Essentially, we're going to be talking about why heroin is on the rise and the effects and the lack of treatment that is associated with it. So as stated before, heroin is essentially a disease that is within the brain. Many people argue that addiction is a choice, which it is, but it evolves into an actual disease. Even though it's a choice at first, it soon becomes a part of the disease that actually needs heavy treatment to get over it. And a fact for you guys, there are 9.2 million people in America today that are suffering from heroin addiction. So heroin addiction is currently on the rise in the young, white, and suburban population. Most people think of heroin addicts as people who are homeless, on the streets, even though that is no longer the case. According to the Foundation for a Drug-Free World, people who are dying from heroin addiction are actually overwhelmingly white males. These are people who live in middle-class families who actually come from past backgrounds that do not support heroin use, and it's definitely on the rise within those populations. So essentially, why is the heroin addiction rising? Heroin is different forms of the drug. So basically, it can be snorted or smoked, which makes it more popular. It can also be injected into the bloodstream. Heroin is also made very pure, and usually starts with snorting or smoking of the drug, and then so these people want to achieve a higher high that they'll start injecting it into their bloodstream, which causes a greater effect. So there's basically the cost of heroin. Heroin is cheaper than most of the drugs that they have, so a lot of people can get high for a cheaper price on that. So that's basically an important factor on the rising cost of heroin. So yeah, prescription drug killers and painkillers, they give them about the same effect as it is for a cheaper price. Drug smugglers want to make a profit, so they will do anything they can to get heroin within the United States. Laws make it actually harder to get prescription drugs. A lot of those regulations are on doctors and stuff. So if you do have a medical condition, a lot of times people have a hard time getting these prescription drugs to help them. So they do resort to buying heroin off the streets in order to combat their medical issues. And heroin is actually easier to get than a prescription drug. So prescribed medications, people who are heroin addicts usually start off by being addicted to painkillers. They're made with the same opiates, so a lot of times people will get addicted to them, and then they will still want to get that feeling that they achieve from that, so they will actually start buying heroin off the streets. Some people have to get surgery or have a broken bone, and they become dependent on the prescription painkiller medicines, and that's also bad because then when their doctor takes them off of those medicines, whenever their bone's healed, they still want to get that high, so then they're resorting to over-the-counter drugs. So heroin has a lot of effects, as it affects the mind and the body physically and mentally. The way that heroin makes a user feel, they basically describe it as euphoric. So injecting heroin into the bloodstream is basically the most popular way instead of snorting or smoking it. This can cause overdoses a lot faster because it's literally being injected straight into the bloodstream rather than being snorted or smoked. Basically, the things that can make a person feel, they describe it as a numb, out-of-body experience. And many diseases are actually linked to it. It can be because HIV and AIDS, hepatitis C from needle uses. The crime rates are increased due to heroin uses. It can also lead to lung complications, collapsed veins from constant injections, clogged blood vessels, affecting vital organs, lung and kidney disease, and also heroin is actually responsible for 4 out of the 5 drug deaths in America. So, along with the effects of heroin, there's also withdrawal symptoms for someone who isn't on heroin at the time. So basically, people become not only mentally addicted to heroin, but also physically addicted to heroin. When an addict doesn't have the drug, they actually can get physically ill. Most people relapse even after they go into treatment. Some withdrawal symptoms are delirium, hallucination, insomnia, sweating. They can even have seizures, they can have slurred speech, trembling, and nervousness. The effects are actually so bad, that's why the relapse rate is so high. So there is a lot of treatment and everything for it, but because people literally cannot go through the physical pain that it is to get off of heroin, they end up relapsing and going right back to the drug. So basically, the lack of treatment is high for the heroin user. So many hospitals that they go in for people who are on heroin, and then they get sick and they go to the hospital. The hospital doesn't have addiction experts inside them to help them with these issues. So they're basically just band-aiding the problem. And they don't offer the detox program. There are rehab facilities, but they usually have a long waiting list. They're very expensive to go to. A lot of insurances don't cover these facilities, so if you don't have the family support or the financial support to get help, you honestly can't seek it. A lot of these, they are also put on a waiting list, and sometimes by the time they get put on the waiting list and they go, it's honestly too late, and they end up overdosing. This is a picture at the bottom of a girl who, in 2001, was not addicted to heroin, and then we see 7 years later, in 2008, the physical effects that heroin has on her, and you can see that her appearance went really downhill, and she just looks a mess because of the physical effects that heroin has in as little as 7 years that can be caused. So in conclusion, all in all, we have many reasons why heroin addiction is on the rise within the community and the young population. We talked about how addiction is essentially a brain disease, how it's becoming more popular along the white suburban communications, basically why it's one of the most popular drugs, the effects that it has on the human body, and the lack of treatment that is associated with it. Here are some references that I used within the speech. Do you guys have any questions? No? Alright, thank you guys for coming out today.